What's up and welcome to Ahead of the Curve. This is your host, Jonathan Gelner, and thank you so much for joining us. This episode is powered by Stick and Ball TV, the baseball and softball streaming platform. If you haven't already, check it out at Stick and Ball TV because there are literally hundreds of videos and so much great content just waiting to help you get better. Check it out at stickandball.tv or on the Stick and Ball TV mobile app. On today's show, we have on John Carter, head baseball coach at Round Rock High School in Round Rock, Texas. John is a graduate of Round Rock High School and attended Round Rock schools growing up. Upon graduation from high school, John attended Texas Tech, where he played both football and baseball. And after his playing days ended, he remained at Tech as a graduate assistant from 1992 to 1994. He returned to Round Rock in 1995 and coached multiple sports, including softball, soccer, football, and baseball. So on the show, we talk 3 C's: culture, competition, and core values. I also learned that in 2017, when John was named Texas High School Baseball Coach of the Year, it came after a year of graduating 7 Division I players. You're going to get a lot out of this episode with John Carter. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for having me. I'm really honored to be here, and I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
Definitely. Well, I want to go ahead and skip back to a few years ago, we could say. So whenever you started the job at Round Rock and just thinking back, okay, so you get the job, you get hired, you go through the interview process. And so I love this question because, you know, I envision myself being a head coach someday and then I have a lot of guys that have come on, but I don't think a lot of people talk about like what day one looks like. We talk about the interview process and we talk about, you know, preparing for that, but then it's like, okay, you just got hired. Now what? So if you could take us back to kind of just the vision that you had and then some of your first steps, what were they? Like, just walk us through a little bit of what that first, you know, couple of weeks and then your vision going forward looked like from there.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I got hired in 2003. We went to the state finals and got beat. We had a couple draft picks on that team. We got beat in the state tournament at the final game by who beat us? Carpenter down at. He was retired now, but I was the assistant coach. I was the JV coach. Yeah. Now, he wasn't at Prosper at the time. He was at Fort Bend Elkins. That's where it was. And, you know, they beat us. John Danks, who's, you know, number 8 pick in the draft that year, was pitching for us, and he threw 74% strikes in that game. And they beat us. You got to tip your hat, and that's the way the game goes. But Coach Langerhans, our head coach, told us after that game that he was retiring and that he was going to support me taking over because his first assistant, Coach Richardson, was also retiring at the same time. They're going out together. They coached 20-something years together. And so I applied, I interviewed, and I got the job. And then, like you said, you say, oh, no, what's next? I really felt like that our program was in a good spot. I felt like that Coach Langerhans had, you know, he was my coach in high school. He had mentored me. He'd shown me how to get to that point. I coached under him from 94 to 2003. And so when I took over, I wanted to kind of keep the Dragon pride and program going in the same direction he had it, with some changes and you know, adjustments due to the new mentalities and things that kids had. So I really had a good foundation in place. I had a good mentor in place. I took a lot of the things that he and I sat down and discussed quite a few things. And I looked at some things outside of the box that he hadn't necessarily implemented, particularly like the mental game. And so I just kind of dove in head first and started using some of the stuff most of the stuff that we do, he taught me. And but there was, you know, as time changes, so should we, excuse me. And so that's what I started doing. I started looking at ways to take us to another level to help our kids be as successful as they can be. And the first thing I did was the mental game. I felt like the mental game was a big piece of it. I started reading into Brian Cain. I listened to some of his stuff that he's doing. I went and visited with him, um, and was able to establish our core values and things of that nature. And it was a challenge, that's for sure. Learning how to manage parents, how to manage students, how to manage time, um, how to manage more than one team. All those things became a challenge for me, and I just took it one step at a time. By the grace of God, I was able to get to where I am today.
I love hearing that, and I love that you were able to just add layers to something that was already really good and something that you were already familiar with, which is, I think, a really cool aspect of what you've been able to do. And so you guys have been very successful up to this point too, and you're getting ready for another successful state tournament run, hopefully. And so I did want to ask you, tell us a little bit more about your core values, how you developed those, and then tell us what they are.
I was kind of all over the place for a while, and I sat down with my principal one night or one afternoon. Philip Warwick was our principal at the time. He and I sat down, and he was an old coach, and he said, what's your mission? What's your goal? What's your vision? And he made me reflect on a lot of things that I really hadn't put down on paper. And I felt like that I needed to make it. And like Brian Cain says, you got to make it seen, noticed. People, it's got to be everywhere you are. And so that year, I can't remember exactly. I think it was 2006 or 7 that I started doing this. And I finally, I got my core values, and I said, these are the things I want to do. And then I started doing some more research, and I said, it can't be something I want. It has to be something the kids want. And so I started the season that year. We went and sat in our, what we call the Dragon's Lair. It's like our study hall room. And we were in there for like 4 hours. And I said, what are we going to be about? And I kind of did what Brian Cain and several of the other sports psychologists do. And what is us? What are people going to see when they see us? And we took probably 100 different words that we had on the dry erase board and narrowed them down to 5. And our core values are what they are, and they continue to be what they are today. And the first one is accountability. The second one is brotherhood. The third one is character. The fourth one is grit. And the last one is passion. And we have those 5 core values written everywhere in our program. They're on our lineup cards. They're on the wall of our locker room in big giant letters. I mean, they're everywhere. And that's the first thing when we talk, we make our teams in the spring. That's the first thing we talk about. We are going to show these in the classroom. We're going to show them on the field. We're going to show them in the community. We're going to show them at home. Everything we do need to be about this. And if they're not, then we got to get something fixed within our program, because that's what we want everyone to know us for, is to be able to follow those 5 core values.
I really like that a lot, actually. And I think, I've been guilty of this too. And you see this a lot of the signs on the wall, and you ask some of the kids about it and they're like, yeah, I didn't even know that was up there. And so I think that's really cool that you guys are driving home. And so I want to really, double down on this a little bit. How do you teach that consistently? Because I think that's something that's missing. We go over it once, and we've spent a lot of time on it. Like you said, you spent 4 hours trying to really distill down what's truly important to you and your staff and your program and your school. But how do you do it? And this has been a while, so you've gotten the opportunity to do this for several years. How have you felt that you've been able to improve on these things, as far as just teaching, making sure they know it, consistently hitting these, and then just give us any advice that you've got as far as, if we want to do something similar, what are some things that you learned along the way?
Well, I would say one of the big things I've learned is kids, like you said, kind of look past it sometimes, and you got to bring it back to their attention. Accountability is a big piece. Obviously, it's our first word on our list, and holding them accountable. What I try to do is every year, at the beginning of the season, we try to have another little sit down session. And what does that look like to us? And we divide them into groups. We make them sit down in small groups and discuss it. what are we going to when people come to the field, what are they going to see in terms of accountability, in terms of brotherhood, in terms of grit. They'll write down grit, playing with dirty uniforms, showing that we're willing to get down and dirty and do what we have to do in order to make plays and be successful for the team. With the time of COVID, it's been a big deal because we weren't able to get on the field from September 1st till October 20th. So we were in nothing but virtual for that entire time. And I put a big impact. We met every day. And I think we're one of the only school baseball programs that met every day that's in our district. We met every day for at least an hour a day virtually. And one day we spent a whole day on accountability, and we talked about it. What does it look like? How do we hold each other accountable? How do you hold me accountable? The players hold the coaches accountable. How do the coaches hold each other accountable? Just every aspect we could. So that was a big blessing, even though COVID has been a hardship on a lot of people. It was a blessing for us to be able to use that time to develop those things to help our kids understand where we're trying to go. And, like you said, it's we have to do daily reminders. There's sometimes we say, hey, what does that word say on the bottom? Go look at the workout today. And what does that second word on the bottom of the workout say? And they'll come back, brotherhood. Are you showing your brotherhood to your buddy right there by talking trash to him and whatever? So just little things like that, having it places where you can point to it and say, this is what they are, this is what we need you to do, has been very helpful. The hardest piece in what I'm learning now is every year is a new group because you got a new set of freshmen coming in. Your leadership changes. And so teaching those kids that are turning into your leaders, new leaders, and the new group of kids coming in that don't know anything that's going on is how to get them both on the same page, teaching each other. That's what makes my job easier when I can get those kids that have been in the program to teach those new kids, this is what we're about. When they can take ownership in that, that's what makes the whole thing work.
No, once they've owned it, that's when you win. I love hearing that, and I think that I want to drive that point home a little bit even more than you just did, which I think is really, really good. So within that, so you've got these core covenants or core values that you mentioned. You could also call them standards, I guess.
Yep.
Now within that, do you have any program rules like I don't know, maybe these, if you aren't adhering to what we would call these core values, then there are consequences? Or do you have what are program rules, anything that you want to go over with that?
I guess one of the things the big one is, and I've heard this from several other people, don't do something that would jeopardize our program or yourself. I tell them all the time. I tell my kids this constantly. Don't make a 2-minute decision affect the rest of your season. Don't go out and do something that in 2 minutes of time, you make this decision, and then all of a sudden it comes back to haunt you 24 hours later, and it costs you the rest of your season. Not only you, but your teammates. And I've heard Pat Murphy talks about mudita, the joy of other people's success. We've have that on one of our shirts. I believe in it. I believe that those standards, if we can just uphold the standard of do what's right, if your mom and dad were standing next to you, would you do it? Then don't do it. If they were, if you would do it in front of them, then okay, then go about your business. Be smart, make wise choices. There's lots of other rules you could put in there, but I really don't want to have a whole bunch of written rules down, because then you micromanage things, and they have to have some accountability in there and some ownership.
No, I love that. And so I leads me to my next question too, because you talked about you want the culture to really come from the top down, but also from the bottom up. And so you're having those small groups, and you're having the older kids teaching the younger kids, and then especially with COVID and the Zoom calls that you guys, I think we've all feel like we've been living on. But tell us a little bit about how you help with team cohesion and making sure that it's not like segregated with upperclassmen and lowerclassmen, and then freshmen just kind of get everything else. Or you've done this for a while, and so you've gotten to see the different dynamics with all kinds of different teams and different players and different grades. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on how we can do a better job of making it, one team together. But what are some different ways that you do that?
I tell you what, that's a great question, and I'm glad you asked it, because first week of we get back from school, and this year was different because we had to do it virtually for a little while, and then what we did, even though we were able to get back on the field, I still took the time to do this, and I really believe it's powerful. The first week of school, on a normal school year, the first week of school, we're doing paperwork and setting lockers and things of that nature. I put some ownership on them and say, hey, this has to be done by this time, this day. Basically, I give them 2 days. Excuse me. And then we have what we call field time. And I don't know if field time is the best word. It's just the word I use. But what I do is I see them all find someone they don't know. Pick someone. Seniors get with a sophomore or a junior. Junior get with a sophomore or a senior, and go find somebody you don't know. And you're going to spend 10 minutes just walking around the field, talking, getting to know each other, learn about each other. It's hard for a sophomore. We don't allow freshmen in our athletic period just because there would be too many of them. But we have sophomores through seniors, and they really don't know each other, like you said. And so what I do is I make them go learn about each other. Go find out what you like to do. What about your family? Where are you from? What's your favorite ice cream? What's your favorite movie? Do you have a girlfriend? Just get to know them on a personal level, because when you start developing those relationships, those personal relationships, kids start to feel better about being able to communicate with one another. And so a sophomore now is willing to call a junior or a senior out because he knows him. When he doesn't know him, he thinks like, I'm the lower end of the totem pole, and so I can't say anything. But once he has developed that relationship, he's able to do that. And it's been outstanding for us, especially this off season. I've had lots of kids, especially some sophomore kids, that are not afraid to call an upperclassman out. And that helps with the whole cohesion, and it develops that cohesion between classes, teammates, etc. And in 2016 or 15, I had 7 Division I or college players that went off to play at the next level. All 7 of them ended up at Division I schools. That team got beat in the second round of the playoffs. In 2017, those kids is really when we really started doing this field time. Was when we started really pushing it, and those kids developed those relationships. We had 0 kids that signed Division I scholarships. They had a couple of junior colleges, small schools here and there. That team got to the state finals. The team cohesion that we developed because of that was unbelievable. And I had some of those kids from the previous year come back and say, I wish we would have had that, better relationships with each other. And I think we would have played better for each other. So there's a big thing in that piece.
Oh, for sure. And I think another step that a lot of coaches are taking to do that is like forming teams and having different competitions within that, because, regardless of how much you love your buddies, you always want to beat them no matter who you're with.
Yeah.
And so you talked about wanting to talk about competition. So can you kind of empty your pockets on what you guys do?
Yeah. Before we do, let me throw one more thing at you on that.
Sure, of course.
The team culture. We do, I got this from Dabo Sweeney. We do what we call the safe seat. You probably heard of it, where we go into a room and each person gets in the seat, and whatever's talked about in the room stays in the room. And it's been very powerful. That's another piece that we use to really help us build relationships. I've cried in the room. I'll be honest with you. My tears coming down my face, crying, listening to my players talk about their families and their fights that they have going on in their lives, and myself, just some personal things that I've had to share that have become very powerful. And your players, once you hear all the time, they need to know that you love them before they're going to play for you. they also want to know that you're human and that you have a soft side, and you're not willing. I mean, you're not afraid to share those emotions with them, and it becomes very powerful. You, what's his name? Sheets talks about heroes, heartaches, um, highlight. We kind of throw those in there, but we also do it. Have some fun ones in there too. Do you like blondes or brunettes? Just fun things, but it helps loosen it up and helps develop that team chemistry. So I just wanted to share that piece as well. I hope that's okay.
No, that's great. I love that. Thank you for sharing. But yeah, competitions. What do you got on that?
Okay. Well, I got a lot. We do competitions every day of some sort. Coach Tom Collins, he used to be the president of the Texas High School Baseball Coaches Association, was my crosstown rival at Stony Point High School. And he and I have developed a great relationship since I became the head coach. And we used to talk just about every day about different things and shared ideas. And we actually have started to write a book of different kinds of competitions. We've stolen a lot. We've stolen some, but we've also created some. We actually wrote an article that was published in the ABCA Inside Pitch magazine called Live Action. And it's a game that we developed that promotes live action. It promotes action on the field. We try to do this at least once a week, or if we need some kind of scrimmage situation where we need to get work, we can get work by pressing the envelope. There's a full article published on it, but what it is you play the game. You play with each inning has 4 outs, which is, I know it's different. You got to think outside the box a little bit. Player steps into the box with the 2-1 count on him, puts pressure on the pitcher to have to throw strikes, allows the hitter to be aggressive in the count. You can steal a base at any time. If you get thrown out, you return to the base you came from, and the out doesn't count, but you can't steal again without it counting. So it doesn't count against the outs, but it promotes runners to run. It makes pitchers have to learn how to hold runners. Catchers have to throw. Hitters can hit in running situations, those kind of things. And we'll play that game all the time. And I'm happy to share with anyone that wants how the game works. I've got it all written down in a document that I'm happy to share with anybody that would like it. It has been a game changer in terms of our kids learning how to pound the strike zone when they're behind in the count. It teaches you as coaches who can do that and who can't. And you'll learn real fast. We actually, until this fall, we've played the last 3 falls. We've played this game once a week with other schools. And it's not just play 10 innings. We divide it into 3 3-inning games. So we'll play 9 innings, but it's 3 innings, clear the scoreboard, start over. So it's like a 3-game series, and you're trying to win the series every time. It's been very good for us.
I love that, and I'm sure you'll have a ton of emails coming to you for the live action game. But anything else before we move on to the next thing? Because I think that one was fantastic. But I want to give you an opportunity.
I got one more. One more. We started doing this year actually. I got it from Skip Johnson at Oklahoma. We call it Lightning BP, and with the era of launch angle and all this lifting the ball. We're trying to get kids to hit line drives and reverse the spin of a baseball 180 degrees without trying to lift it. We saw a lot of fly ball outs early on in our tryouts and our first scrimmage. And so my assistant and I said, let's try it. And what it is, basically you got 3 or 4 guys in a group, and you're going to get 6 to 7 minutes of BP. We use a machine. So they're going to get consistent pitching with some velocity, and your job is to hit a power ground ball or a line drive. If you hit the ball in the air, get out of the cage. And, first kid will step in, hits first pitch, hits fly ball to center, get out. Next guy gets in, another fly ball. And about the 3rd time through, they started realizing, hey, I'm not going to get many cuts in here if I don't start doing what I'm asked to do. And we've done it 3 times, and the second and third time, the difference from when we first did it to the second and third time has been phenomenal. Our quality at bats in our 2 scrimmages that we've had so far, our quality at bats, hard hit balls have been like 62% in each of the 3 scrimmages. Kids are hitting line drives. We're not flying out. We're getting power ground balls. We're moving runners up when we need to, and it's been very good. So I would say that's another competition. It's more of an interpersonal competition than it is a team competition, but it forces those kids to hit the ball the way you want them to.
Cool. I love that. So with when we talk about culture building, obviously when we as high school coaches, we have an extra layer of culture that we have to be included in, that's parents. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on, and this is let me rewind just a minute. So you've been there since 1995, and that's when I was growing up. I remember my parents not being all that involved in what I was doing at school. And almost every coach that I've talked to has been like, yeah, the last 10 years, it's really been a transition of parent involvement. And regardless of if that's a good or bad thing, one could argue one way or another, but you've gotten to see that transition too. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on just really what you found as a good balance of, helping parents to be involved with the program and some different things that you guys have been doing.
Well, our booster club is a big piece of it. We rely heavily on our booster club for fundraising and for helping with playoff stuff, maybe meals, concession stands, work days on the field. So you have to develop a relationship with the parents. Our booster club does a phenomenal job in all areas. And you're right, it is a different realm than when I was growing up. My dad didn't ever get involved in what I was doing. He said, you got to go out and earn everything you get. Go out and we didn't have select ball or travel ball. So it's a different mentality that we're in. And with social media, the kids, I tell them all the time, you're too used to getting instant gratification. In order to reach your goals, you're going to have to grind it out sometimes. But getting the parents on board and understanding, hey, we need you. We need everything you can bring to us is going to be powerful to our program. But while at the same time, have them understand we're still going to hold your kids accountable. With the mentality that the realm they're growing up with is instant gratification of their cell phones, it's hard for them to learn that sometimes. And sometimes you just got to tell the parents, hey, your kid, and this is one of the things I use, your kid is old enough to be in charge of a deadly weapon. They're able to get behind the wheel of a car and drive. That's a deadly weapon. And sometimes you're just going to have to let them fail. You're going to have to let them be held accountable for their actions, have not feed everything with a silver spoon. And that's what I tell them. I tell the parents that. I said, I want you to know that I'm here to help you raise your child as much as teach them the game of baseball. When they come back, I want them to come back as good fathers, sons, and so forth. And I want them to be able to say, thanks, coach, for all that you did. And I'm sorry I was a knucklehead at times. The parents are pretty much on board with that. And so it's been good.
Oh, that's awesome. So with the time that we're recording this at the end of February, you're getting right into the season. I guess you're transitioning from scrimmages to preseason. And so, over your years, you're transitioning from off season to preseason, and then from preseason to the end season. Let's just kind of walk through those, and let's start with, so you go through off season, skill development, you go through all of that, and then you transition into preseason and then into in season. What are some different ways that you found to really be efficient, or you want to make sure that you have in before the season starts, or just anything in regards to just by the time that we get to game one, we have these boxes checked, we have these things done, and just kind of walk us through your thought process.
Well, we start off the year with, we want to see how they've progressed over the summer. So we'll start on the field for a while, and then October 1st, we put the ball down. we don't pick it up for 6 weeks. I'm a firm believer that kids play too much, they throw too much, they get dead arm. There's times that they just need to set the ball down and not do anything. And so we will take that time to work on skills, like you said. We'll do lots of strengthening. We'll be in the weight room 3 to 4 times a week. We'll be on the track or on the field running, trying to work speed and strength and athletic ability. I've become a big believer in mobility, foam rolling, things of that nature, to try and teach the kids how to make their bodies function better. We have a former player of mine that's a chiropractor that kind of came in and did some stuff with us to show the kids how to do things correctly, to help them move better. Once Thanksgiving comes around, then we go back to picking the ball back up and we start our arm development. And we put a big emphasis on hitting and arm development at that point. We're not throwing bullpens. We're not doing anything of that nature. We're long tossing, following a stringent throwing program that it's out there on the internet. Alan Yeager has it out there, and there's several other ones out there. We've kind of put it together to fit our calendar, and we have each kid gets a copy of it, and they follow it. At the same time, we've got involved in the blast motion stuff, and we bought those blast sensors for a lot of our kids. I think we have 50 of them. Our booster club invested quite a bit of money into doing that, and now those kids are doing nothing but working on their hitting and skill sets and trying to make sure we're fixing inefficiencies in our swings and making our swing patterns work better. Once we get back from the holidays, now we're full bore bullpens. Our focus is all working on getting our pitchers ready, so when we get to the tryout period and the scrimmages, we're ready to start throwing competitively versus live hitters, and our pitchers are able to develop their stamina and be able to go, certain pitch counts and see where we are in that realm. So that's kind of how our phases are phased into it. And then we go into our regular season. They're using the scrimmages and so forth to kind of see where we're at.
Well, that's awesome. And so again, you've been I guess a head coach now for 15 plus years. And I think that it really is a balance and trying to find what your team needs in season to really work on, because you want to balance how much time we're spending on your individual development, your team development, how much energy we're expending versus how we're going to go into the next game. And so for young coaches who are going through that, this may be their first year, what would your advice be for them as far as in season, trying to feel their way through how to plan out a season, or as the season progresses, you do more of this or less of this, and just kind of what are some different tips that you have for, or just even things that you've learned along the way as that go along the lines of that?
Do a little bit, a lot. We have a list of things that we try to touch on every week. We try to, from our catch play to our bunt coverages to our first and third offense and defense, we try to do a little bit, a lot, to make it where, and I have a list of things that we're going to cover each week, and we try to just each day when we're planning our practices, we try to cover those things as often as possible. That's the best answer I can give you.
You also mentioned that base running is a really a large area that you guys try and take advantage of, and you feel really comfortable with like teaching that aspect of it. You really enjoy that. So to walk us through what you guys do for base running, how you teach it, and just we'll just kind of go from there.
Well, every practice starts with base running. We'll go through our team discussion, or some people call it classroom time. We don't go inside. We just do it outside around the field. And then we go from there to dynamic warm-up and then straight into base running. And it varies from day to day. One day we may be working dirt ball reads at first base. Another day we may be just working on our jumps at first base, varying them from a momentum lead to a normal lead to a leave early, a delayed, or something of that nature. We're going to work all those things on that day. Next day we may do what we call four corner base running. We'll have a hit and run at the plate. We'll have a straight steal at first base, a read the ball off the bat at third base, and a read the ball off the bat at second base. So we just constantly are doing different base running skills, and we're doing them from about 10 to 15 minutes every day. And from there, we transition into our throwing program and go into practice. Now, we'll also do base running during BP at times, but the primary focus is we want them to understand that base running is a valuable piece of what we do. And so we put a tremendous emphasis on it at the front end of practice. And you know what? We don't have to condition it because we are working on it every day.
No, that's really good. And again, with, like you mentioned, you putting it at the very front of practice is just telling them, hey, this is not something that we're doing for conditioning. This is something that we're going to do to exploit defenses and to help us score more runs and win more games. And I really, really like that. So I do have a couple of lightning style questions for you before you go, just for us to learn a little bit more about you. What is something that you've learned lately that you're really excited about?
I'm learning. I've been doing this program it's by Brett. What's his last name? Gosh, I can see his face. Anyway, it's called Win the Moment. Just learning about teaching kids how to be in the moment, how to handle failure when the stuff hits the fan, how to get back in the present moment. Just a lot of the mental game. And I guess the other piece that I'm really interested in is continuing to develop areas of our offense in terms of different types of first and third offense, second and third offense, those kind of things. Understanding the teaching the kids the rules of the game and how they can be used to help them in those situations.
Love that. So you've been a head coach you've been at Round Rock since 1995, and you've been a head coach for 15 plus years. I'm sure you could say a lot of things about this one, and it's kind of a tough one, but what's something that you've changed your mind about? So it could be something that the first couple of years you really thought this, and then lately you found more evidence of like, oh, okay, maybe I was thinking about that differently, or just could be something very simple that you're like, yeah, I was wrong in this or that. But I'm really interested to hear your thought process behind this.
Well, they say in the classroom that only the attention span of the kid is his age. And I've come to realize that the longer we do practice isn't the better for us. So we've started to do, one of the things I look back and I've changed my mind about is we're trying to be quick and concise in the things we do in practice. We're not going to stay on them long. We're going to do a little bit, a lot, like I've said. We're going to try and, spend 5 minutes and go to the next thing because you'll lose them. And practices drag out to 2.5, 3 hours. You're not getting anything accomplished at that point. So we try to be very concise, and we intermix music and other things into our practice to help with the energy level. And it's been very, very efficient for us.
So taking off the script, how hard of that was that of a pill to swallow for you? Because I know I'm really good at adding things onto practice, but I'm really, really, it's hard for me to, I guess, take my hands off of the reins a little bit and saying, you know what, doing this a little bit a lot is going to be better than doing it for a long time.
Yeah, it was something I had to really learn and kind of bite my tongue on at times. I wanted to go longer, and at times I've come to realize longer is not better. It's been definitely something I had to grow up into, for sure.
That was really good to hear. So the next question is, what is a drill that your players love that we can steal from you?
It's a drill we call chaos. It's actually a competition. It's a timed game that we play. We divide into 3 teams. We do this during our off season, and if we're just the varsity, we'll only have 2 teams. But it's a off the machine, 3 minutes, score as many runs as you can. Double plays count for points for the defense. Wow plays count for points. It takes probably 25 to 30 minutes to do. They're going to play 4 rounds, and when they're finished, they're drenched but happy as can be. They're soaking wet from running and competing, but they love it. They absolutely love it.
Oh, really good. And then finally, I know that, that's how we got in touch is, you listen to the podcast and you're obviously a learner and you love growing. You talked about Sheets, so you obviously listen to to his too, which is great. But what is just one book or resource in general that if you could buy or purchase for every listener, what would that be?
There's two books that I really love. One is called The Culture Code by Daniel Coyle. He has another one called The Talent Code. I really like both of those books. Those played a big impact on me, but Gary Gilmore spoke at the Texas High School Baseball Coaches Association clinic in Waco, and he mentioned this book called Lead for God's Sake. And that book is a game changer in my mind. Teaches you relationships and how relationships can play an impact in what you're doing. And I would say those books were the ones that have had a big resource, and I would buy it for other people.
Oh, I love that. Well, John, I appreciate your time today, and I appreciate our friendship, and ever since you reached out a couple of years ago, you've always been somebody that I've looked forward to every time I get a text from you, and so I really do appreciate that. I will link your contact info down in the show notes if anyone wants to get in touch with you. But I did want to take just a couple of moments to tell you that, but also to leave the mic open for you. Is there anything else that you'd like to tell our listeners before you go?
First and foremost, thank you for the opportunity to be here. I agree. I'm the same way. When I get a text from you, I'm excited to hear what you got, share with me, because you got some great stuff, and you're an avid learner. You're thinking outside of the box. And I think that's the big thing I would share with people is don't be afraid to get outside of your comfort zone. Don't be afraid to think outside of the box. I'm very blessed that I get to coach in Round Rock, Texas, my hometown. I graduated from Round Rock High School in 1988, played for the coach that I went back and started coaching for. And I have a lot of pride in what we do here. I make a lot of mistakes. I'll be the first to admit it. And we're all human, and it's understanding that when you make mistakes, you got to be willing to own it. And it's okay for your kids to see you own it. It's good for them. It's good for you. I think that the more you can listen to these kind of things, these podcasts, and read books and Twitter and all the different social media outlets that are out there, there's a lot of things that can be shared and owned. One of the things I would be conscious of, though, is make sure we don't, as coaches, particularly high school coaches, our job is not. This isn't a business. This is a lifestyle, and the game of baseball in other realms in college and pro is a business. But we're still here to coach all the kids, and sometimes we have to make hard decisions. Tryouts are my worst time of the year because I have to cut kids that could probably play at other places, and it's very difficult. And I want everyone to understand it's not personal when I do that, but just understand that even though I cut a kid, I'm still going to love on them, and they're still Dragons, and they're still part of Round Rock High School, and I still want to have a relationship with them. And it takes time sometimes, but I try to reach out to some of those kids that I know and continue to develop relationship with them, because kids develop at different means, and some will grow and catch up, and next thing you know, they're going to be your starting center fielder. Just the relationship piece is a big piece. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I'm on lots of different realms. I'm happy to share anything I have with anybody, and hopefully you gain some value from what I had to talk about today.
Thank you for listening to Ahead of the Curve. You can subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, which could include Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, or YouTube. And if you're enjoying the podcast, please share it on social media to help get the word out. Once again, thank you for joining us.